What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm Chris Lado. I have kind of a different video today, a very deep, emotional video for me as well. I've had this hypothesis in my brain as far as I can remember, at least 20 years. And I think it's really the reason I started creating was to get this idea out, whatever it is, to communicate this idea. I didn't know how, so I started writing books back in 2014. For whatever reason, now I've reached a point where it's clicked into place. I saw this last interview with Lex Fridman and Avi Loeb, and there was one key exchange that really clicked this whole hypothesis or theory, whatever you want to call it, into place. It was an emotional event for me. I'm still kind of blown away by it. I can't believe it's actually here and I can present it, and it'll sound crazy, but everything's crazy until it's true, essentially, right? I don't know if this is true, but it's a hypothesis. This is what I think would explain or could go very far in explaining dark matter and possibly UAPs. And yes, that's a ridiculous statement. Yes, that is ambitious. It's terrifying, actually, to even say that, to release it on the web. But you know, I'm going to do it. And yeah, and this is my channel. If you don't like this content, then watch something else. If you do like it, please like and subscribe to get more content like it in the future. Without further ado, let's get into Chris's crazy ass theory on life, dark matter, and the universe. Here we go. You ready for this? This is a mind blow right here, guys. There's two key concepts I need to kind of relate before we get started in the actual hypothesis. The first concept, if you look back into human history at paradigm shifting ideas, the one kind of common theme is it's always simpler than we imagine. It's always bigger or more numerous than we could possibly imagine, mind-bogglingly large or mind-bogglingly slow. And humans are not at the center. That's what we find. I think if there's any resistance, or if you can't see that this is an obvious hypothesis or real hypothesis, I would ask you to consider why, and are you considering yourself as the human, the top of the life food chain? And I think once you remove that bias, you can see. Look back in time, okay? The Earth was considered flat for however many millennia that we know of, which makes sense, except it's kind of obvious once you know, right? It's obvious. I mean, the moon is circular, the sun is in a sphere, and the Earth itself, right? You can only see 5 miles if you stand on the shore, okay? So you could see a ship coming over the horizon. It's going to climb, just like it's climbing on a ball, right? So it is obvious once you know. You can actually measure from anywhere on Earth. You can measure, right? A shore is easier, out to 5 nautical miles. And then you climb up a little bit, 100 feet. Now you can see 7 miles. Climb up another 100 feet. Now you can see 9 miles. So from anywhere on Earth, as long as you can climb up and at least see some level horizon, you can calculate the actual diameter of the Earth using simple or reasonably simple geometry. They did this literally thousands of years ago, but it wasn't until much later that humans actually finally realized that the Earth was a ball and it wasn't the center of the known universe, right? That was Copernicus. Copernicus showed the Ptolemaic model is incorrect, and actually the sun is the center of the solar system, the heliocentric model. He showed this, and then Galileo is who proved it using new lens technology. So the lenses, I think that technology is really what's allowed us to bend light and see things that were incredibly small that we couldn't possibly imagine, and into the outer universe, see things that are incredibly large that we also cannot imagine. The numbers are mind-bogglingly large. It was this key technology, this lens technology, that I believe has allowed us to actually see, physically see, into other dimensions. We even talk about it. It's even in the words, in the words that we use, the dimension, right? The size. I think we can see dimensions. It's just through size. We are actually physically looking, and that's through that lens technology. A microscope, you turn it around, now we can see down into small micro dimensions, all the way down to the atom, even smaller. As far as we know, it keeps going. There's still elemental particles that we're finding. And the same way as you go up the other direction, as we look up, it just keeps going mind-bogglingly large. But remember, all of this is frequencies, wavelengths. We don't actually touch each other.
If I push hard enough, of course, I can break or poke into or cut something. But I'm not touching any of its matter. I'm just pushing it out of the way using the electron-electron repulsion forces. Even though, so you can cut things really easily like this, the scissors never touched the card.
So you're not actually touching anything. It's actually vibrations. Could just be spectrum, a frequency in space-time, which we still don't fully understand. You can watch my first part 1 series on this, what are UAPs? But the size is the dimension. Just think about it. It's obvious once you think about it, okay? We make up all these multiverses, string theories, all these crazy things to make up for these other universes. But really, I think we can literally see into other dimensions using our technology, primarily with lenses, what started out with, and now we get more advanced with electron microscopes, etc. The second concept I need to relate is one of entropy. Is how do we actually define life? Entropy is a measure of disorder. It actually lets us foresee which way chemical reactions will go. Everything we know about in the universe, except life, goes towards increasing entropy. It gets more disorder. It is for chaos.
Familiar everyday objects have many, many times more particles than this. The chance of a hot object in the real world getting hotter is so absurdly small, it just never happens. Ice melts, cream mixes in, and tires deflate because these states have more dispersed energy than the originals. There's no mysterious force nudging the system towards higher entropy. It's just that higher entropy is always statistically more likely. That's why entropy has been called time's arrow. If energy has the opportunity to spread out, it will.
Unless it doesn't, right? And that's what life does. I think that is my argument for life actually orders things. It creates order out of inanimate objects. When Van Leeuwenhoek, when he turned around Galileo's telescope, right, and made it into a microscope, he looked into a drop of water. And what did he find? Millions and millions of microscopic little tiny animals. And that's in every single drop of seawater on Earth, except for the Dead Sea. But even then, I bet there's probably some little microscopic bacteria or something that can survive in that heavy salt environment. Everywhere we look on Earth, there is life. And how was he surprised? What was he surprised by when he looked down? Robert Hooke and Van Leeuwenhoek. What were they surprised by? They were surprised by order. They were surprised by seeing actual ordered little machines moving. Because what were they expecting? Disorder. It was the Aristotle view at that time. They were expecting just clear water. Or at least that was the Aristotle view at the time. Water, earth, fire, ether. That's it. Should have been just clear water as far from our understanding. But what do we learn from that? We peer down. Actually, life has much, much smaller dimensions. And it just keeps getting smaller and smaller. So it was that specific order, the actual order where he was expecting to find disorder. And that's what I argue life does. It replicates. It takes disorder, disordered matter, inanimate, dead matter, if you will, and now it organizes it and it replicates into the future. This into space-time. This is what life ultimately does. So that's what I think entropy is related to life. So those two concepts, remove the human bias as you can. We're not at the center. And then consider that life organizes, is what it does, organizes inanimate, dead matter. In other words, it decreases entropy, which goes against all of our laws. So if we want to look for life, just look where entropy is decreasing. Now let's get to the theory. Let's look down in microscopic into your body, all of our bodies.
These are tiny molecular machines, and they are doing this inside your body right now. To understand why, we have to zoom out. Every day in an adult human body, 50 to 70 billion of your cells die. Either they're stressed or damaged or just old. But this is normal. In fact, it's called programmed cell death. But to make up for all these lost cells, right now, billions of your cells are dividing, essentially creating new cells. And that process of cell division, also called mitosis, well, it requires an army of tiny molecular machines. So let's take a closer look. DNA is a good place to start, the double helix molecule we always talk about. This is a scientifically accurate depiction of DNA created by Drew Barry at the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute of Medical Research. If you unwind the two strands, you can see that each has a sugar phosphate backbone connected to the sequence of nucleic acid base pairs, known by the letters A, T, G, and C. Now the strands run in opposite directions, which is important when you go to copy DNA. Copying DNA is one of the first steps in cell division. Here, the two strands of DNA are being unwound and separated by the tiny blue molecular machine called helicase. Helicase literally spins as fast as a jet engine. The strand of DNA on the right has its complementary strand assembled continuously, but the other strand is more complicated because it runs in the opposite direction. So it must be looped out with its complementary strand assembled in reverse, section by section. At the end of this process, you have two identical DNA molecules, each one a few centimeters long, but just a couple nanometers wide. So to prevent the DNA from becoming a tangled mess, it is wrapped around proteins called histones, forming a nucleosome. These nucleosomes are bundled together into a fiber known as chromatin, which is further looped and coiled to form a chromosome, one of the largest molecular structures in your body.
Right now inside the body.
You can actually see chromosomes under a microscope in dividing cells. Only then do they take on their characteristic shape. Otherwise, the DNA is more strewn inside the nucleus.
So this is similar to one of your human cells. 70 billion of them dying and being born every day inside your body, living their little lives, going about, doing their jobs, aligning with some of your skin cells, becoming neurons, becoming heart cells, becoming blood cells, everything made up of trillions, literally trillions. The closest estimate I could get was 17 to 70 trillion cells in your body right now, living their little lives. And you don't think anything of them. You know, all we consider, you and I, at this dimensional level is what's inside my skin, right? Inside this permeable membrane. But now let's look at the size, okay? So here, this is, seen this chart maybe before. We have the wavelengths here, okay? And this is the frequencies, right? So this is the length of the wave. And basically you have atomic nuclei down here. And then we have our atoms, right? Around 0.1 nanometers. DNA, he said, is 2 nanometers on the short side, okay? So that's DNA. So at the 2 nanometer level, so just one order of magnitude bigger than atoms, is DNA. And that's where we can see this life replicating. You can see it replicating order trillions and trillions of times right now in your body, mind-bogglingly. Mind-boggling. So if you were the size of a DNA molecule, you could look over and actually see an atom. Well, you wouldn't be able to really see it because 99.9% of an atom's mass is in the nucleus. Very similar to our solar system, to our sun, right? Most 99.9% of the mass in our solar systems in the sun, and then we're orbiting around in these planets, okay? Very similar to an atom's structure. DNA is here, 2 nanometers. Now as we move up the chain, and how does DNA communicate? Okay, so this was the big breakthrough for me, was Lex Friedman asked the question to Avi Loeb. He was talking about the Drake equation, which is this long parametric equation, trying to figure out what is the probability of finding life in the universe, right? Well, he asked a very intuitive question. Lex asked, how do they communicate? There's a certain parameter in there, which is length of time of civilizations. So how do you rank a civilization as being alive? And he said it communicates. And that just clicked into place in my brain. Because now we can identify at the dimensional level what life is by its structure and how it communicates. Like us, structure, understood, pretty understandable. Now we're communicating through thought, okay? At the DNA level, they're communicating through Just like you saw creating those other molecules. So they send out molecules. They're like mailing molecules to each other, or printing molecules, if you will, at the cellular level, right? Passing chemicals, molecules that are at their size as well, up to maybe enzymes, etc. So as you get larger, the communication changes. As we get to here, so this is basically needlepoint of a pin. Okay, this is getting to the cellular level. Now we get to the organelle level. Okay, so this actually be the organs in your body. How are they communicating with each other? They're actually communicating through hormones. Okay, so larger molecules that fit the dimensional level of that dimension, all the way up to our level. Okay, so our size, our dimensional level is the human level. We're pretty comfortable with this. I think we can all agree that I'm an organism and you are an organism communicating through videos. So basically communicating through thought is how we're communicating. Okay. Avi Loeb answers the second part of the, his answer is amazing. And I didn't even listen to the full answer because it closed the loop for me in his first 2 sentences. He talks about Copernicus. Okay. Because when Galileo asked the king to put his eye up to the telescope to see that actually the earth was not the center of the universe, he didn't. He would not look at the evidence. And he had Galileo redact his statements that confirmed Copernicus that in fact the earth is not the center of the solar system. It was the sun. Heliocentric model. Under his breath, Galileo says, and yet it moves, right? I don't know, he whispers it. The problem is humans always have and always will probably have the Copernican problem, meaning he's not the problem, he was the solution. But we always think that we are the center. That's all we have, is our one perspective, our human perspective, even our brains, the way our neurons actually work is they start at an anchor point and they go from there. So you have to start from some specific point, and that is going to be your human perspective, okay? But I believe you can actually look past this. We can look past this. So up until now, everything stops here, but let's look at the next level up. Let's look at buildings, okay? Have you ever wondered or felt like you were maybe born into a role you didn't necessarily ask for? Okay, as soon as you're born, you get a social security number, you have to pay taxes, right? You have to go to school. You have to go to school to be trained to fill a certain role. You're going to go be a doctor. You're going to be in the medical industry. You're going to be a truck driver. You're going to be moving resources around. You're going to be in the military. You're going to be part of the defense, the claws, the teeth. You're going to be in the government. You're going to be in the brains, essentially. You're going to work on the nerve systems. You're going to work on the communication networks. You're going to lay the fiber optic lines that make all the nerve systems. Are you going to work at Border Patrol? Make sure you're basically in the permeable membrane of the skin of an organization. Are you going to be the board of directors of your company? You're basically a neuron in a low count neural network. So let's look at some examples. Here's the permeable membrane of the cell. In this case, it's much larger. This is the nation state, okay? I think there's several other layers in less than that. Here's your comm networks. I mean, just think about it. Nerves in your body, the same. I mean, it even looks like nerve lines. Now, we've gone from analog to digital just in the past 200 years. So rapidly increasing. These are new upgrades. I mean, the nations of the earth are rapidly upgrading. They're becoming more cybernetic. How do we pass nutrients around? Even our road systems look like arteries, look like veins. This is how we pass fuel, resources, nutrients, police, hunting terrorist cells. We get energy, right? What do nations actually run on for energy? They run on fossil fuel. Funny how we all knew fossil fuel was terrible for the environment, right? Terrible for probably the nation. But somehow we just couldn't stop it, right? It's almost like it had a life of its own. It's almost like it has a brain of its own. These oil companies, the oil lobby, they act on their own admonition. Think of corporate structure. We actually assign entities to corporations. Corporations can be sued just like people, right? We talk about them like they're people. Under our legal agreements, they are entities, they're organizations. But for us, no, human level is all there is. There is no life above us, right? Even though you go down every single level in your body, all the way down to the DNA, which is mind-bogglingly small, every single level has life. All at our dimensional level, there's life. But as soon as we go right above, nah. I mean, did you ever wonder why you love that sports team? I mean, you really hope they win. You know, it's an emotional event. It's something like something built into your system, right? Almost like you are a stem cell and you can adapt, go into certain organizations to build up much larger organisms. I mean, think about sports teams. You don't know those players. They're probably not even from your town. And by the way, they start over every year, and yet you feel this emotion, right? The passion. They got to kick that ball harder. They got to run that ball into that end zone, shoot it through that hoop. I mean, this doesn't strike you as a little odd? I mean, look at the waste products. This is a nation, or let's say state-sized dung pile, right? If you're an alien, if say an alien showed up at this planet, I mean, would I really look over here and be like, yep, there's the intelligent thing on this planet, Or would I see this giant dung pile and scan out? I mean, I think it's quite obvious, if you're not a human, that humans are not the top life form on this planet, at least not the largest. And it's because we're perfectly suited to be stem cells. We can adapt. We are software codable. We can be trained. We can be propagandized, right? The military, I joined the military. I went into that part of the teeth. Bills are made. Think of how does the animal that is in America make decisions? Because we talk about it, right? You talk about America, right? America attacked Afghanistan, right? America went into Iraq. We even talk about it like that. People say, oh, I like Americans, but I don't really like the government. I don't really like America, right? Does it ever feel like there's been a response? Like you don't understand why everyone's just got this emotional fear response, almost like it's an organism and it's been like poked by something, and there's like a physical response. You can see it makes terrible decisions, right? They don't have many neurons. Look how America makes a decision. Okay, so this is our neural network. I mean, you can see a bill, right? There's basically starts as an idea. One of the neurons, one of the congressmen or aides comes up with a bill. Now it starts building. You can see it actually go in a neural network until it gets all the way to the end, and then they vote on it. Imagine yourself making a decision. Should I do that or this? Okay, but this is just a very, very, very small neural network. Okay, it's like a little baby, or a like a jellyfish or something. It's an animal. It hasn't evolved yet. So if it feels like you're just inside of a wild animal, I think it's because we're inside of a very large wild animal. That, in my case, is America. I'm going to get so much shit for this. So this is the size. Okay, let's go back to the size. So like I said here, if your mind hasn't been already blown enough, let's keep going. So here's the human, and here's the radio size. But look, it stops right here. It stops. And why does it stop there? First is, we can't imagine anything larger, but also in order to measure a wave, you have to have an antenna that's long as one of the wavelengths, okay, to really get the full wave. In this case, we don't have any antennas really, really long enough. And I challenge you to find something online where this actually goes past, right? Because here we are, humans. Again, we think we're right at the top. Yeah, there's buildings, nothing there, no life for sure. But then below us, oh, look at all this life going all that way. So we stop here, but I think we should keep going. So we go back to this chart, the relative size. This is also temperature, okay? This could be interesting for the actual background radiation temperature of the universe. Buildings, okay? This would be at the corporate level. So where you have a building, you're a member of a club that's like a little minor, small little organizational organism out there. And now we go to the next level, okay? So if we just keep propagating this up, again, in orders of 3. So this is 3 zeros bigger, orders of magnitude, 3 orders of magnitude bigger. I would put it on the city size, okay? So this will be the organization at the city level. That you're talking about your cities, right? We talk about Houston versus Dallas. We refer to them as we use pronouns, right, for these cities. Well, not he, she, but we use it. We use it for Houston. We go to state now. So as you zoom out, I'm sure, you could put county in there. You could put larger one. I haven't gone into so much detail on this, but I would go out to the state level, approximate. Then we go out to the national level, okay? And you can even see the nations on the earth vying for control in the environment for the planet. Just like organelles of a larger organism. They're all working somehow in conjunction. It seems chaotic, right, to us, again, because we're looking up through dimensions. And this I would raise out to the level of the solar system, okay? And like I already mentioned, the solar system, so I guessed it right around 10 to the minus 12. This is frequency, okay? So, but if we go on the other side of these buildings, we end up right at X-rays are down here at atoms. So atoms back to systems. So I think you do have repeating structures, and I believe there's only at certain levels maybe where you can have what we would consider consciousness or sentient thought. Because at that level, there's certain dimensional levels like ours, I believe, where thought is, maybe that's just the size you need to actually transmit thought. Who knows? But even more interesting is I still even made the human mistake, right? Because it goes much, much larger. If you look out at the actual size of the universe, David Butler has an amazing series called How Far Away Is It? Literally blew my mind. There's been 2 YouTubers in my life who has really changed the trajectory of my life. David Butler is one of them. Thank you, sir, for your amazing educational content. Unbelievable. The other guy, the other person who's really changed my trajectory, just incidentally, is Brandon Carter. He's not for everybody. Okay, he's a colorful character, but man, he's so motivating, changed my life, gave me the courage to speak up and speak what I believe, to not self-censor myself, and to accept the consequences. And I'm going to find the truth as best I can. So as we go here, we go local group. This will be the local group of the solar systems. So in our local neighborhood, if you will, of the Milky Way. Then we go out to the galaxy level. Okay, if you actually look at like Hubble Deep Field, it even looks like amoebas. I mean, out to the local cluster, supercluster, and then the mega cluster. Okay, so this is just an overview. We can go into more detail at a later time. And that is actually one of the main points of evidence for dark matter, is spinning of galaxies. Okay, so there's more order there in the galaxy than we're expecting. Just like when Robert Hooke and Van Leeuwenhoek, when they looked into that drop of water, there was those little ordered amoebas, which even look like galaxies, right? Even look like galaxies, is more ordered. Those little tiny machines, that they're expecting no order. They're expecting just clear water. Instead, they saw order. And if you look at galaxies, okay, for dark matter, one of the prime points of argument, one of the main arguments for dark matter is that as a galaxy spins, it's spinning too fast to actually hold in all that matter. It should be flying out, right? Which means there must be more mass in the center to hold it in. There must be more gravity being formed. 90% more gravity. It sounds like you are 90% wrong in your model of the universe to me. That order could be from life. Exactly what we are missing. As we look down through all of our levels, all the size dimensions, all we see is life. If we look anywhere at our level, all we see is life, right? At least on this ball that we've been to. And if we look just slightly above and we remove our human bias, we see that there is also life. We are organized into groups. You are born and given a social security number without a choice. You did not choose that as far as we know. And you will most likely die in that organism, unless the organism dies, like they do all the time. Countries are born, fall, they replicate. I mean, what is America trying to do, right? Bring democracy to the world. It's trying to replicate its system. Instead of dark matter, would be assuming when we look up, try the assumption that it's like everything else, everywhere else we look in dimensions, down. Assume that when we look up, instead of seeing no life now, maybe that's all we are seeing is life. And that order that we're not expecting in the universe is actually order from the larger dimensions that we can now see thanks to our technology. I mean, just look back through history, okay? As nations were born and fell, okay? This white area is what's really going on. These are all tribal regions, okay? You're going to have small little, tiny little amoebas, right? As the big creatures are growing right along the equator, right? Where it's in that warm zone, okay? That because of the human element, okay? Where your cells, you're only going to be able to live where your cells can actually live. But it's really only been in the last 1,000 years or so that the system has finally kind of gone national or global. It really took new technology, took the advancement of technology, took fossil fuels. Maybe that's part of the life cycle of a planet to actually grow, get to a certain level, and now it's going to mitosis. So what we could be expecting is in the future going to go off-world, but could be related to UAPs. And this is how it relates to UAPs. I'm just going to say it. just like you have control mechanisms in your own body, right? If some cells get out of place, get out of step, okay, you have T workers that are going to keep out foreign invaders. You have specific control mechanisms in your body that will make sure cells don't get out of control, right? They have enough nutrients for them. They're going to bring them stuff. If they are doing something wrong, maybe they will cell terminate. Okay, so there are control mechanisms making sure the whole organism is fine. Okay, if you have a terrorist cell suddenly form in your organism, such as say it happens in America, America will go and try and destroy that terrorist cell. So you do have control mechanisms that come from higher dimensions. When you get arrested by the police for doing something wrong, that came from the state or whoever it was, city police. The city police, the control mechanism from the city, from that dimensional level come to your house and arrest you. They are doing that. There's humans doing that at our cellular level, if you will, but it appears as humans dressed in police clothes. Okay, that's what it appears. If we keep zooming out, if we are surrounded by life, if we're just another cell in this very mind-bogglingly large organism that we call the universe, then UAPs will be most likely a control mechanism. What will they appear like? They'll appear like other dimensional beings at our level. They'll appear like some sort of aliens, however they've evolved at their specific environment. But most likely we are all related. Most likely we're all in the same system, which aligns with all of the major religions. This could be what we are seeing. So finally, David Butler. Mind-blowing. How large is it? Okay, so as we keep expanding out from our solar system to the local group, to the galaxies, which look like amoebas, local cluster, supercluster, megacluster. Okay, as we zoom out, there is structure. We're actually seeing structure. Okay, so you can actually determine structure of the environment. Check it.
Between 2000 and 2008, the Sloan Digital Sky Survey conducted one of the most ambitious and influential surveys in the history of cosmology. Over 8 years of operations, it obtained deep, multicolor images covering more than a quarter of the sky and created a three-dimensional map containing more than 1 million galaxies. These are the color-enhanced slices through the survey's three-dimensional map of the distribution of galaxies. Earth is at the center, and each point represents a galaxy. Galaxies are colored according to the age of their stars, with the redder, more strongly clustered points showing galaxies that are made of older stars. The outer circle is at a distance of 2 billion light years.
2 billion light years. Okay, so this is the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. What they did is looked out as far as they could out to 2 billion light years and plotted each galaxy. So each dot is a galaxy. Okay, this is as accurate as
the region
we can
between
get,
the wedges
and the
was
most
not
recent
mapped by the
model.
survey because dust in our own galaxy obscures the view of the distant universe in these directions. Working with the Virgo consortium of scientists from the Max Planck Institute in Germany, the survey put every data point into a supercomputer and produced the largest 3D image ever created. Here we are zooming into and panning across that image. Here you cannot see individual galaxies or even galaxy clusters. What we see are superclusters linked together in filaments or walls in a gigantic cosmic web.
This little dot, that is a supercluster of galaxies, thousands and thousands, millions of galaxies all together. But there's a definite structure, like you said, there's a definite structure lined up in filaments and walls, almost like we're just looking out into a large organism. That's it, guys. That's the hypothesis.
In this view of the cosmos, the great Virgo supercluster is just a dot. There are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth. This is the big picture of our universe as we understand it today.
And I think we don't understand it. And I think what's holding us back is our own humanism. Just look at the past. The paradigm shifting ideas, they were simple. It was just about scale and us not being at the center. You look here, we're a part of it. It's not even exclusive. You know, for me, an atheist, I'm so happy I found this. It means that maybe all these religions are true. Like they do hold a grain. It's all related to vibrations. And maybe the different religions just have different perspectives or miscommunications on what it actually is. You know, you think of meditation, the Buddhism. It's all about getting to nirvana, reaching peace or the central tenet. Look at your regenerations look at your monotheistic religions, that you're all part of the one. It could all be true, guys. I mean, we can find this. Okay, this is testable. We just look for structure, and we look for areas where we don't think there should be order, but there is order. And the first step to doing this would be first finding a way to see if we can lengthen this out. This chart needs to be longer. Okay, can't just stop here. So can we get longer detectors, or is there a way to actually detect past that? And if we do prove the existence of extraterrestrials or UAPs as other forms of life on our planet, then this will strengthen this hypothesis. So I'm going to do everything I can to get actual proof of UAPs, of extraterrestrial on our planet, and then prove this hypothesis. Or not, guys. This is just a hypothesis, but it blew my mind. I hope it blows yours. If you think it's a little crazy, sorry about that. It's my channel. You can watch something else, I guess, if you don't like it. But back to UAP hunting. Guys, please if you like this video. If it blew your mind, like this video. I try and read all the comments best I can and reply to as many as possible. Thank you so much to Patreons. Thank you so much to Brandon Carter and David Butler for just kicking so much butt out there. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great week. Peace.